hands? That's like a baby's toy.
I'm totally Batman.
Oh, man.
Shh. Communing with the earth spirits.
Welcome to California, bud.
Cowabunga.
The world of magic.
And after that, I just sort of space out for about an hour.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Secondary Heroes podcast. This week we're talking about the Game of Thrones prequel, House of the Dragon. The full 10 episode run from start to finish, highlights, lowlights, our overall impressions. Listen to find out what do we think. Is it worth your time? Have you watched it already? Do you want to join our discussion? Who knows? To everyone listening, this is Trevor and joining me as usual.
Hey guys, it's Prague.
Howdy everybody, this is Alexander Wolfgang. Hey fellas.
Awesome. We excited Game of Thrones is back?
At first I was not, but maybe we'll have to find out.
Yeah,
You'd be
that's
surprised.
the big question, because after the original Game of Thrones, I think all three of us were done with everything related to this franchise.
I mean, other than maybe the books, I would like to see how George R.R. Martin, I practiced that, was going to finish up the series himself. But other than that, yeah, I was kind of done, I think. Even though I loved the series for most of its run.
Yeah.
I
was
originally, when they first announced this show, I was super excited, and then life really takes over, and you have to cancel HBO Plus or HBO Max or whatever it is, Plus
Whatever it
Max,
is.
Max Plus.
It should be called Plus. Everything else is Plus.
So,
They really missed out.
spoiler alert, I haven't watched an episode yet.
No way.
We're back at it.
This is more shocking than any plot twist in Game of Thrones.
But you know what? I
Can't
am
believe it.
excited to hear what you guys have to say. Maybe it'll invigorate me to start my HBO Max again.
We'll see. We'll shall see.
So, if you are new, where have you been? But we're glad you're here. And usually we like to start off the program with our spoiler-free, is it worth your time? Did they do a good job? Did we like this show? And then we go and tell you we're going to spoil it, and that's when we go into the details of why we said what we said.
Okay. There you go. There's the
How do you guys
rundown.
feel? How do you guys feel if we switched it up? We just jump straight into spoilers, and then at the very end, we give our ratings.
No.
Okay, what did you guys think?
That was a hard no.
I'm glad I'm here this week.
Do you want me to go first, Trevor?
It's up to you,
Or do
Prague.
you want to go first?
If you want me to go first, I'll go first.
Rochambeau.
Rosham, go. Trevor.
Okay, so this is interesting because we saw the panel at Comic-Con, and I forgot that this show was in the making and that it was going to launch like in 2 weeks after Comic-Con, because it launched in August, and I was like, "Wait, I'm not ready for Game of Thrones. I don't care about Game of Thrones." The panel was bad. It was really bad. Whoever moderated it didn't really do a good job. They have like the whole cast come up there. There's like 15 people up on the stage, and they all get one question each. And it's very stilted, and just, it was not a good panel. I was like, okay, I'm not probably going to watch that. But I knew we were going to watch it because it's a big deal in pop culture. And
It is.
I didn't watch this when it first came out. Like, I waited until I could watch all 10 episodes kind of day by day in a row. So I was here in the pub. You know, there's a lot of publicity about this show. There's a lot of buzz after the first episode. People were really getting into it. And I'm like, okay, that seems relatively surprising. And as it went, it seemed like this show got the most notoriety of House of the Dragon, She-Hulk, and Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. All three were started in August or September, and this one, by far and away, was just getting all the talk of the town about it. And so that changes your expectations going in. If I would have started right after the panel, it would have been like, okay, I'm on equal footing with everyone. Instead, you go in where it's a buzz. It's like, okay, this is hyped up. And now that I've watched the whole thing, I can see why there's buzz, because this show really goes back to what the original seasons of Game of Thrones were. It has that footing and grounding in what was good about Game of Thrones, and I fully appreciate that. I think my biggest concern is that every episode, the beginning is really good and the end is really good, leaving me to the next one. But that middle chunk of each episode just really drags. This is a really slow burn episode, and there's a lot of scenes that you could see they could trim down, they could tighten up, they can cut out some unnecessary stuff. But the overarching storyline, once you watch all 10 episodes, it's like, I really like the big picture elements of the story. I'm excited to see where it goes. It's just, it's slow in the middle. But I'm happy that I watched it, and I think everyone should watch it. Just be prepared that there's some slow sequences. Like, you're going to have to slog through some stuff.
Be prepared.
Wow, yeah, I kind of echo what you said. I thought it was really worth my time. I enjoyed the hell out of it. It is different, because there's been a lot of comparisons between this first season and the first season of Game of Thrones. A lot of people like to compare and contrast them, and the first season of Game of Thrones is like one of my favorite seasons of television. I thoroughly enjoyed that. The big difference is with Game of Thrones, you're spread across so many different areas. You're dealing with so many different families and people and storylines, whereas this is like really laser focused on one house, the House of the Dragon, their drama for the whole first season. So it's a little bit tighter in that way, but maybe not quite as epic as Game of Thrones is. And I think that it's almost like comparing apples to oranges to me. I think they're both great in their own respects, and they both have the same kind of pluses and minuses to them, because there are aspects to Game of Thrones where, like you said, like the middle of the episodes sometimes do drag. They kind of hit you in the face in the beginning of an episode with something really freaking graphic or crazy or out there or whatever. It's exciting, and then you get a whole bunch of just people talking. Now, a lot of that talking is fine if I'm reading a book. It's great. It's like great narrative, great prose, whatever. In a show, sometimes not too exciting. It's a lot of just explaining stuff. And there's a lot of explaining stuff and lineages and reminding you who's related to who and why. And they repeat that several times in case you forgot from like 2 episodes ago, because you might. There's a lot of names and things to take into account in this show. But then the episode ends with like a bang. It's really great. Some big spectacle, CGI fest, battle scene, dramatic reveal, whatever the case may be. So I think it was a great show. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was not expecting to enjoy it. I love dragons. That's like my thing. But I didn't necessarily care for the Targaryens as a house. They weren't as intriguing to me as some of the other houses. And now I'm really intrigued. I really kind of like them. It's, not, I don't know. I guess I saw them as being just pure crazy chaos, evil, and nothing in between, no gray. And this kind of gave me the gray, and I really kind of appreciated that. So worth your time. Really enjoyed it. I think it is definitely better than the later half of the Game of Thrones era. So this is what you said, Trevor, kind of like those early seasons of Game of Thrones. I feel like we were back. There was a lot of, it felt to me like there was a much bigger budget for this show, which I believe there was, with a lot of the CGI work.
And it seems like they took their time and they didn't have to rush on to different projects.
Yes.
I am going to have questions throughout this podcast.
That's fine.
That's fine.
Okay. I hope we're okay with that. But now we get to the fun part where we're going to spoil the heck out of it. But before that, we're going to get into our socials.
Ooh,
Make sure to check us out over on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and everything else. Check us out over on crossthestreamsmedia.com. Over there, you can leave us a voicemail. What did you guys think of, or not you guys, but what did our fans think of this show? I've heard good things, I've heard bad things, but I want to know what you think. So give us a call over on crossthestreamsmedia.com. Again, we're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, also YouTube. Check us out on YouTube. You can check out our handsome faces. Just 3 handsome fellas just talking to each other. Anywho, make sure to like and subscribe over on YouTube because it helps the algorithm, people to see more of us, I guess. I don't know. It gets pushed out to more people. I mean, everybody's talking House of the Dragons. We want to fit in that mix. Yeah. And all of that is at Secondary Heroes everywhere. So please. Oh, hey, and if you are listening on Apple iTunes, make sure to leave a 5-star rating. Or if you don't like us, don't leave any kind of rating.
Still give 5 stars and tell us how you
Give 5
feel.
stars and just be like, these guys are terrible. But you know what? They're 5-star friendships. That's what it is. They're 5-star friendships. Okay, guys, all this is free for you, and it's priceless to us.
Awesome.
Okay.
So, as we mentioned, that was our spoiler-free section. If you've not seen the show yet, we're going to spoil it right now. So you can come back, listen to us later, or you can go full on along. This show definitely does have twists,
Like
turns,
Alex does.
and surprises.
I'm gonna be surprised.
Oh boy! All right.
So
well,
I
this is
think-
a show.
Yeah, the big takeaway, I think, is this entire show is set 172 years before the birth of Daenerys. So that's the linking point to the original series. And the other linking point is the literal Song of Fire and Ice, the prophecy that is passed only between the rulers of the Targaryen house. So very few people actually know the prophecy. It's written on the dagger, and there's going to be a lot of lost in translation and different ideas of what it entails, and it kind of fits in with what... So this is what I mean about the balance of the show is still predicated on what happens in the other show. If you've never read the books, all the things like the prince who was promised and everything about winter's coming and what the Night King entails and everything that they get rid of and throw under the bus in season 8, it's a big deal in this show. The entire emphasis of the decisions they make is based on that idea, and now we know what it comes to pass, and so it kind of lessens the meaning of this show.
In a way, I feel that too. It's kind of unfortunate. It's still cool to see the dagger, prominently featured. But yeah, it definitely lessens it since they screwed it up so much with the 8th season of Game of Thrones.
Once the final book comes out and we see how George R.R. Martin actually wants to end his story, not the way that they did,
right?
It kind of emphasizes it different, but it also means that now the books go together and the shows will always be linked because a large segment of our population is never going to read the books regardless.
True.
Ding,
This
ding.
is very true.
Still
That's the
haven't
way
read
it
Harry
is.
Potter either, and yet
The way it is. It's okay. So no, I agree. I agree that it will lessen it, but it didn't take away my enjoyment of it. I still kind of
It definitely doesn't take away the enjoyment. It's more of it doesn't build up to even greater heights.
Right, because you're not like, you know what's going to happen. It's not quite the way you think it's going to be, or the way they think it's going to be. Because that's spoiling Game of Thrones. I guess we're going to spoil Game of Thrones here too. Just FYI.
If you haven't seen Game of Thrones by now,
because it was not a Targaryen that took down the Night King. It was a Stark. So the prince who was promised was not a prince. Spoiler alert. Anyways, yes, Alex, you're gonna.
But in 2022, I mean, they could have identified as someone else. So.
But
Maybe Arya-
no,
Arya
in
was no one.
2022, the one thing that we know is super hot is these ideas of shows like Succession and Yellowstone and Empire came before that, and this is essentially the Game of Thrones version of that. It's the Shakespearean classic King Lear, just told time and time again in different fandoms and different franchises, and this is the Game of Thrones version. This is essentially all this is.
Yeah. I'm okay with that, but yeah,
People
it
love
is.
that.
You're
I mean,
right.
Succession
You're
and
right.
Yellowstone are super hot. People eat that stuff up. So whatever.
So could someone walk into the show and without even seeing Game of Thrones, could they still find enjoyment out of this?
I would
Or
say
do
so.
they need that?
I don't
like,
think you need Game of
pedigree?
Thrones.
No, you don't need Game of
No.
Thrones. I think it'll definitely heighten aspects of it. Like, there's obviously times where, like, the music will swell when they show, the dagger that kills the Night King, and, like, you're not gonna know. As, like, someone who's never watched Game of Thrones, you'd be like, oh, maybe that dagger's important. But, like, if you watch the show, you're like, wow, that's really important. Like, that's the dagger.
It's more like Easter eggs and homages and pieces that don't necessarily have to.
Right.
Like, again, it's that heightened thing. Everything about this show, it's you can get more from it, but it's a fully standalone experience.
Well, where should we begin with this series?
I think the emphasis is dragons. The CGI budget for the dragons was outstanding. There was some great dragon action throughout this. I think the ultimate juxtaposition is that in one of the episodes we see a stag and it looks so super fake and CGI, and then the dragons are so realistic, and I think it comes down to the hair. Dragons have scales, stags have fur, and it's just tough to render hair for some reason.
We were just talking about this on She-Hulk. But yes, you're right. It is hair-based. But that's an analogy I've seen online a lot. People are comparing the dragon and the stag in the show, and like, hey, one is definitely easier to do and manipulate than the other.
Well,
So
and
you don't have all the
one
little pieces.
you can actually get a real stag. You can get a trained stag to be on stage if needed to be in the shot. Why even CGI something that you can just...
Animal rights.
Yeah, maybe animal rights.
We can't
possibly.
have animals in shows anymore.
Is that like a real thing? I mean, we really can't.
Oh no,
have...
it's totally a real thing. You have to jump through hoops to get real animals on sets now.
I'm
a
assuming
lot of shows
an animal
jump through
like
the
that
hoops.
too.
You have
cheaper.
the pedigree.
It's cheaper, man. Much cheaper to just CGI it.
Right, but notice what people are talking about. This was the very first thing that we talked about is the fact that it looked bad.
Yeah, but it was a small moment. It was an important moment, but it was still a fairly small moment. It wasn't like the stag was in the entire series. It wasn't like the main character. It wasn't like a She-Hulk. It wasn't the main character. It was
No,
a
I
moment.
get that. Oh yeah.
So I don't think they were going to spend the money just for that one moment.
It's
Okay.
more just how great the dragons did look. And the dragons appear in most episodes. And I think the main takeaway for the dragons is how many dragons there are. And then they set us this timeline of 172 years. Like, I don't know what the life expectancy is in the Game of Thrones universe. But by the time we get to Game of Thrones, Cersei specifically mentions that dragons are a joke. She doesn't believe they're real. The last dragons were the size of dogs. 172 years seems a pretty short term for dragons to fall off that fast.
100%.
To them to think they're just rumor and myth in 172 years when there's like 13 dragons just flying around, full-size gigantic dragons.
Well,
My guess is that it's going to be a very, very bloody war. I think.
Oh
that
yes,
no
that's how
dragons
this season
survive it.
ends. Yes.
Yeah. There's no dragons going to survive this series. So that might be why. I mean, I would guess for us, for example, like, not to get too political, but are things that happened, within the last 100 years that people don't think exists. So it's pretty plausible that within 200 years, people would say, oh, there's no such thing as dragons.
That's fair.
people
Yes.
don't. People still think the Earth is flat. I mean,
Exactly. I mean, I was trying not to be political, but yes, you're right.
is that a political
No, I'm
statement?
joking. I don't know.
Okay.
I
There
think
are people
everything's
that
a
take that
political
way
statement.
very seriously nowadays. Oddly enough.
But yeah, I definitely could see that because we're gonna jump all around, but in the first few minutes we get a dragon right off the bat,
Yep.
and the entire show ends with a dragon. Like the first thing we kind of see is a dragon, and the last thing we see is a dragon, and you can see that dragons are the biggest thing. It's called House of the Dragon. It's why the Targaryens rule, and the lack of dragons going forward is really interesting because that's what makes people have a Game of Thrones. Because there is no game if you have a dragon. If you're playing a game where it's like, oh, I'm going to marry this person and I'm going to do some political back stuff here, dragon just destroys the deck. It
done.
comes on the board and it destroys the whole board, no matter what game you're playing. Dragon.
And that's why they've been in charge since the beginning. No one's been.
And that's
able
why you have to get rid of dragons to have a Game of Thrones. Otherwise, there's nobody playing any moves or anything, just dragging them.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And one of the very first lines of the show is the only people that could take down the House of the Dragon is themselves.
Yep.
No one else could. They're the only ones that could take themselves down. So it comes down to civil war within the family. And that
Ironically, though, it's
this show.
and it's an outside house that
It is an outside house. That's true.
messes up everything. And the really good thing is they did a lot of houses that aren't prevalent in the other series. So you know that these houses are going to fall on tough times because of the decisions they make.
You chose poorly.
Ooh.
If my voice goes out, it's because of the weather. I apologize. I'm trying to drink water, not trying to cough too much.
But yeah, if you've never heard the Hightower House or House Valerian or anything like that, it's because of the decisions we get to witness right now across multiple seasons.
Never heard of Driftmark before, but here we are.
Yep.
Yikes.
So, are there going to be ties to? I mean, besides Targaryens, are there ties to Game of Thrones at all?
I mean, we get the shout-outs to
Hints.
House Stark and House Baratheon because we need allies in the north. And there's the Lannisters because we have... It's still the whole ally relationship things between houses.
Okay.
Yeah, so you get the names. You get name drops and stuff. You'll be like, oh, I remember that. Or, yeah, that person. That surname.
Just got to remember that stuff from years ago.
Yeah, you can remember Baratheon, I think.
Oh, well, yeah, Baratheon.
Yeah, stuff like that. It's nothing too complicated. Don't worry.
Cool.
Yeah. So this show, just to let you know, Alex, anyone who is watching and did not watch the show for whatever reason and is listening to this, the show is kind of split into two different time periods. It does span many, many, many years in just the first season alone. But you have two separate casts because they have a major time jump. I think like almost 10, 12 years in between one of the episodes. So you have a completely adult cast when you had a much younger, like teenage cast of characters. So if you grew to kind of like really love those actors and those roles, well, too bad. You get new actors.
Now, how did you guys feel about that? Was that jarring at all?
So the jarring part is that they didn't recast everyone.
Right.
And so you have some people who are completely different characters. They have different faces. They're completely different people. And then other people are the same exact people, and they didn't even add wrinkles to their face or touch up their hair with gray or anything. They're just like, they look exactly the same from one episode to the next. It was a weird choice in selective recasting.
Yeah. It was. I think the only person that got the makeup was the king himself because he was, slowly decaying.
Rotting, yes.
Whatever that entity became at the end. Oh, yeah.
What does that mean?
He had some...
Yeah, King Viserys. Yeah, I looked up afterwards. It was some form of leprosy that I guess he gets from slicing his hand. He gets a little cut on his finger on the actual Iron Throne. And that is what causes him to have leprosy. And slowly but surely, over the time jumps, he gets more and more like boils and sores. His fingers rot away, then they cut off his arm. And then eventually he gets to the point where his eye falls out. Part of his, he looks like a walking mummy. He should not be alive for as many dead parts as he has on him.
What?
Shout out to those maesters. I don't know how they keep that dead, rotting corpse alive.
It must stink.
Oh my god! Wait, do you think they might have done something to the throne afterwards? We should probably sanitize this thing.
Well, there was a theory. Speaking of the throne, there was a theory that somebody did something to the throne
to make that happen.
Him.
Oh,
No, to poison the tips. Like he rubbed himself on the thing, got scratched from whatever that thing was killing it. But that did not turn out to be the case.
Oh,
Yeah, there was a lot of innuendo of poison.
There was. Yeah.
The weird thing is, George R.R. Martin said, it's a dangerous throne. There's a lot of disease back in that time. But to make the throne itself out of those swords, you would have to burn them at such high heat. There's no form of bacteria or virus that's going to be able to survive on those steel-melted, heated swords.
Yeah. So my guess is there was something on the throne that somebody put there. Still my
Speaking
theory.
of the throne,
Show's
though,
not over.
It's also a different throne than we come to know. There's all these extra swords just on the side of the throne. Like the whole surrounding area is just sword stepped straight into the sky for some reason.
Yes. It's like they tried to do his original vision from the books and wanted to keep the throne from the TV show. So they're like,
Yeah.
let's compromise.
I've
Let's
got
just
to
add a
look
bunch
this
of
up.
extra. Yeah, look up a photo. It's basically just a bunch of swords surrounding the throne rather than leading up to the throne as it's mentioned in the books. So it's an odd look, but I'm glad they did it. At least it was something that I, was hoping to have seen in the show. We never got.
Oh, it is a
Game
lot
of
of.
Thrones. That is.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you imagine tripping
Oh my
anywhere
god.
near that?
They should show that. Just some random like bystander go, oh!
Yeah, they walk in the morning, like, what's that smell? Oh,
It looks like the pit from Mortal Kombat.
yeah, pretty much.
Oh my god. Why would they do that? It's so
Goodness.
silly.
But anyway, so speaking of the casting then, Trevor, when they did transition from the younger cast to the older cast, did you have a preference or did you kind of like both casts equally? What was your thoughts on that?
I feel like I really liked the younger version of Rhaenyra. I feel like
Okay.
she was probably the best actress. The older version, don't feel like she was a more like well-trained and experienced actress. You can tell right off the bat. I just didn't feel her very, I don't know, engaging or present on screen. Like she didn't have like as much like just, I don't know. She feels like she would be someone who's kind of like a character actress and all kinds of stuff, and she's just really well trained, but I don't think she had like a presence.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way too. I think a lot of people were a big fan of, what was her name? Something Best, Ava Best, I think. I forget. The actress who plays young Rhaenyra was, fantastic. I mean, she definitely had that look of Daenerys Targaryen. She kind of that same kind of energy and vibe to her. And yeah, I think that she definitely played that character well. She kind of had a duality to her and a playfulness, and then also kind of a little bit of a darker side at times. And kind of weren't too sure which way she was going to go in the grand scheme of things. Like, was she would she be a tyrant, or would she be playful and fun, kind? What would she be like? And I think the actress nailed that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a disappointment there. Though I did like the actress that replaced the younger Alicent, Olivia Cook. I think was fantastic.
Alicent, she seemed like completely different people. Like older Alicent is someone you actually don't like. She was a really good character person like that, but I feel like they didn't do enough to make that jump between her. Like the last time we see her, her father's like, so if Rhaenyra takes over, there's going to be war and chaos and the whole kingdom. You suck. You're not going to be able to handle this. And then she's like, well, I'm going to take this to heart. And now she's like cold and manipulative and conniving. And it just that one speech just was the kick in the pants that she needed to change her entire disposition.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we needed an extra episode in between the two, maybe.
Because Alicent is such an important character. Yeah. She needed that character development.
Yeah, she did. Oh, well. But yeah, I think Olivia Cook did a great job with that transition. So kudos to her.
And then shout out to Matt Smith, the same
Smith, who never
person.
ages. He uses that TARDIS or something. I don't know how the TARDIS works. I don't watch Doctor Who, but maybe it makes you stay the same age. No idea.
Oh,
so I know.
Ed's listening, going, "Oh, that's not how the TARDIS works."
Sorry, Ed. Apologies. I'll watch it at some point. I keep trying and just can't. So I know, Trevor, we had talked in real life, not on camera here, about Matt Smith and how we both were like, we don't like Matt Smith. We don't want him in this show. What are your thoughts after the show of him?
I feel like he fits as Daemon because Daemon's not particularly likable. He has nothing really redeemable about him, but he's intriguing. You know, he's not just villain for villainous sake. He's more like he's like a chaos agent where he just kind of messes things up for no real reason. It doesn't seem like his motives change per episode, per time period, and he just is a chaos agent. And it's kind of like that Loki anti-hero type of ideal, and I think he fits that really well.
Yeah, I was really surprised when I first saw the still of him in costume, like years ago when they first showed that first trailer teaser thing. I was like, oh no, I was like, I don't know what this is. Matt Smith is the wrong choice. And by the end of the first episode, I was 100% sold, and he was like my favorite character. I'm like, I really like this guy. But I also
The
like people who are
funniest thing
chaotic.
is that my note from the first episode, it says Matt Smith looks like a creepy old Lord of the Rings elf.
Yeah, he does.
And that's exactly how he looks.
He looks exactly how he looks. You nailed it. He looks like one of the elves that would have been at the Battle of Helm's Deep, like being weird and killing people. Because he had that badass armor in the first episode.
Yeah.
You know, with like the wings and stuff on his helmet. Oh my god, he had the best armor.
I'm looking at
Probably in all the
pictures right
fantasy.
now. He looks like the dad from the bad kid on Harry Potter.
Yeah, he has a bit of a Malfoy look to him. I guess.
Malfoy, yes, he's a Malfoy.
He has a Malfoy. Yeah. The
Oh
Targaryens
my
are
god,
Malfoys
they
for
should
sure.
just cross the streams with that.
Yeah, maybe they should. I'm sure there's something out there like that on YouTube if you find it of them doing that. But yeah, Matt Smith was a surprise. I actually kind of liked him. There are times where I did not understand his character's motives, and hearing online, because I didn't read this particular book series by George R.R. Martin. I want to make sure I say that name right.
Jar Jar.
I didn't read that book series, but apparently some of the things that he does in the book is very different than the TV show. Like they almost kind of made him out to be worse than he is at times on the show, and I don't know why. Like I guess they needed us to feel against him at one point in the story, but then on his side again later. Like they weren't too sure who to make us root for. Because I know going into the show, there really wasn't going to be a team to root for like the Starks. So in Game of Thrones, you're introduced to this great family, great values. You love them, you follow them the whole time. They're the heroes of the story. And in this story, there really aren't any heroes. These are a lot of just terrible people doing terrible things for the most part. There are a few decent characters, sure, but like there's a lot of just not so great people.
Yeah, in classic Game of Thrones fashion, though.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
why. Our time.
I mean, that's the worst part of season 8 is that the Starks succeed. That is something that George R.R. Martin would never and is never going to do. They're the tragedy. It's a modern day tragedy.
But here we are,
and so that's why I like everyone
doing the same thing?
sucking. Yeah, like everyone needs to suck, so that way you don't have anyone to root for, and you kind of just watch the fall of the House of the Dragon.
Yes, exactly. So that's one gripe I kind of have with the show is that aspect is they kind of warmed some of the characters up, but also kind of made some more evil than they've needed to be. I don't know. We'll see how it goes with season 2. But they definitely changed the script a bit with how it ended this season. So
I think my weirdest aspect was I kept confusing Rhaenyra with Rhaena, and it's just...
Okay, yeah.
More just their name, like the presentation, like who are we talking about now? And I wrote it down in my notes wrong, and I finally have it down. The princess who should have been queen, but Min couldn't handle it. Her name is Rhaena, and then Rhaenyra is the one who should be queen, but Alicent messes up everything perfectly.
And you know this is all done on purpose. Right, like George R.R. Martin purposely made people's names similar to make it confusing to everybody in the story. It was like, let's call everybody Aegon. Like that's the whole point. The whole point is that like everything gets lost in translation. That's like kind of the moral of this whole downfall of the House of the Dragon. You know, all the inbreeding, all the similar names, and literally everyone is named Aegon. There's like 10 Aegons in this show, so things go awry.
Oh, that makes it so tough. One of the questions that I did have was, with the first season of Game of Thrones, the very first scene of the first episode, they have a whole like the White Walkers and stuff like that.
Scene, yeah.
The zombie, it's like a very zombie-ish scene, and they don't really touch on it for like 2 or 3 seasons after. Do they have anything like that in this series? Anything that they're trying to allude to at all for the rest?
I mean, not allude to in the rest of the series, but there is a character that can have the dreams, like the dragons have dreams, right? They dream of things to come, Like the Song of Ice and Fire is Aegon's dream. He had dreamed of the evil in the north, the winter that was going to come, and that it had to be a Targaryen, the prince who was promised, that was going to slay him, end the night. So there's dreams, and there's a character who is here's where lineage gets funky. So it's the king's daughter with Alicent, who is also Rhaenyra's sister.
Sister,
Yes.
yeah.
And aunt. Wait, yes, and anyways, she can foresee things, and no one believes her. No one knows what she's talking about. They think that she's crazy. She says like all these riddles and things. So if you watch an episode, usually by the next episode or two after, that thing she was talking about happens.
Okay.
That's about as close as you're going to get to that kind of stuff.
Now,
So nothing beyond the first season.
Another question. Since they have these prophecies and these dragons are being able to see the future somehow, is that what you're saying? The dragons
The
dream of
characters,
the
not the
future?
dragons.
The
Targaryen people.
The Targaryen people can dream of the
Yes.
future. Now, you just said that they dreamt of a Targaryen with the dagger killing
Yes.
the Night King.
Right.
How do you think that we might get a future season of like after Game of Thrones because a Targaryen didn't kill, like the aftermath of a non-Targaryen killing? Is that what we're kind of leading up to with having something like this with this story?
That's more Game of Thrones what if, but I feel like Marvel's kind of got the handles on that. I would watch a what if in every random and franchise that I love.
But there is a sequel series coming, so
Of
just
this,
FYI.
of
No, of Game of Thrones
okay.
with Jon Snow,
Oh, that's right. I did hear about that.
because he was the prince who was promised, and he didn't end up slaying the Night King. Because I think the reason why, and I don't know how George R.R. Martin was going to do this any differently if he does, but I think the idea is that since things got screwed up in this series, royally, that's why he ended up not doing what he did. I think it was a butterfly effect kind of thing that happened in this show. And we'll get to that, I'm sure. Trevor, it's like kind of a big moment in the show.
It does sound like there's a lot of
prophecy.
different prophecies happening. Like,
Of course,
Well,
that's
prophecies are
fantasy.
fun because prophecies are only. It's up to the listener. It's a game of telephone.
Yes, it is.
okay, yeah, okay.
It's a good way to look at it. It's a game of telephone. It's passed down through the generations, right? Like, oh, I think he said this name. Aemon sounds like Aegon, right? How about I name everyone in my family Aegon, so that could be any one of these Aegons? To clarify that, so that we can tell you what happens, Alex, the king finally, after 7 episodes, 8 episodes, dies.
Yes.
Every
8
episode you think he's gonna die. Every episode you're like, oh my god, he's definitely gonna die this episode.
He finally
doesn't.
melts away
He
into
just
his
persists.
chair.
And he tells the secret to his wife, who he mistakes to be his daughter on his deathbed, and tells her the dream of Ice and Fire, and tells her that Aegon needs to be king. Well, she has an Aegon as well. Both her daughter and her wife have a son named Aegon. So she thinks, oh, it's my son that needs to be the heir. That's the big miss up. Yeah, it's a big one.
Wow. That's what you get for
Whoopsie.
naming them all the same thing.
I know. So I'm telling you, man, don't do that. Causes chaos.
And so chaos does ensue all because of that deathbed proclamation, and it's honestly, it had to happen that way. That's what's so interesting. Like, they're showing us all the dominoes that had to fall for the Targaryen Empire to collapse. Because if he doesn't suffer the way he does and have that horrible disease, he's gonna make sure that Rhaenyra becomes queen, and it's going to change succession plans and everything. But he has to go through this horrible disease to be on the milk of the poppy, to be so out of it and dying that he confuses his daughter for his wife, or his wife for his daughter, and tells the wrong person the wrong story and prophecy, and it sets everything in motion.
Yay.
And the
Like, and
weirdest thing
it's
though,
fun.
if he's like, if I'm King Viserys and I have a horrible debilitating disease, shouldn't he abdicate the throne and make sure that who he chose as his heir takes over rather than just waiting to die?
You would think, but as I said, I think they were purposely drugging him so he wouldn't do something like that. But yeah, I agree. He probably should have when he was much younger, and noticing that, hey, I have this leprosy. I should probably.
I'm not getting better from this.
Right. Like they're chopping off my hand. At one point, they literally put his diseased hand in a bowl of maggots that eat his skin. In one of the like most amazing but gross scenes in the show, that's fantastic. You can hear them all crunching and crawling over his skin and eating him.
Oh, okie dokie.
But yeah, the makeup work for King Viserys is absolutely amazing. Whoever was the makeup artist or team on this show did an amazing job.
There's a lot of VFX in there too, which was fantastic.
Yes, absolutely.
They made his body look like really tiny, like he'd wasted away completely. Oh, that was good. Good
And
acting
then
too.
also, yeah, his scene where they see him totally debilitated like that, and for him to walk to the throne, he is on like a cane. He has this cool half gold mask that covers his face, and he hobbles up to the throne as one of his last acts. It's a really great scene. It's a really powerful
great
scene, especially because his brother always kind of wants his throne and considers him weak. For him to do that is one of the strongest acts he could have possibly done. I mean, he's pretty much dead, and he's able to get all of his strength to do that.
Yeah, it was that important to him to do this for his daughter to get up on the throne and make that decision and not take the milk of the poppy. So he was in pain. Like not only was he walking, but he must have been in a ton of pain during that scene. So,
I have another question. So, I'm raising my hand, guys.
yeah, yes, in the back, sir.
Yes. Oh, that's me. Hi, I'm Alex. I have a question.
Yes.
In this series, was there any like red wedding type of event? I know that a lot of people really look forward to that type of stuff in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I
Did
would
we
say
see anything like
no,
that?
Trevor. Maybe you can help me with this. But I think what they did with this show instead was have like little moments, red wedding moments, rather than like a whole scene. Like there were really shocking moments, but there were just a few of them spread out throughout the series. There was a wedding, and at the end of the wedding, there was a tragedy, but it wasn't a red wedding tragedy. It wasn't like everyone getting stabbed and pregnant women getting stabbed in the belly and crazy crap. Yeah. But don't worry, there's enough, scarring pregnancy scenes throughout the series. So a bunch of fetuses falling on the floor and stuff. It's a lot of fun. It's a joyful series at times, yeah.
A lot of pregnancy problems. Like, it really shows how difficult it was. It's amazing humans survived.
Yeah, in real life, not just in fantasy life, but in real life.
Like, before all the medical tools that we have now to help birth, man, if the baby's coming the wrong way, they're both dead. The baby's coming to her, like, if you're stressed. And so we have Viserys' first wife, Rhaenyra's mom. She dies in childbirth, and that would have been the son, because the whole big deal is that his firstborn child is a female, and that just frankly will not do. And so he goes and tries to have a son, and he's going to have a son, but he dies in childbirth, and the mom dies, and he has the terrible decision. And then there's Laena, where she's gonna give birth, and she's a dragon rider, and she's married to Daemon, and she's of Valyrian clan, so she's on Driftwood, and they have all those fun little connections. And then she's gonna die. She can't give birth to her child, and so she goes to her dragon and orders her dragon to essentially burn her alive before she just dies, and that's a fun scene too. And then Rhaenyra herself, she's gonna give birth for the fifth time. She somehow popped out the first four okay, but this fifth child, she's stressed out because she finds out that she's not gonna be queen, and that the dad's dead, and everything got just all turned upside down.
Everyone went to hell fast.
It induces labor, and the baby's not going to come. It's premature. And so she essentially pulls the dead baby, out of her. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so some visceral childbirthing sequences.
I might put like a disclaimer at the beginning of this episode, just kind of saying there's some graphic talk
There's some
happening
graphic
in
talk.
this episode. Okay,
Yeah.
wow.
It's
wow.
a graphic show.
So I will say, like, if we were still like in our pregnancy stage, like with our first kid, oh yeah, I'd have a hard time watching or seeing or hearing any of this stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna put a disclaimer before
There you go.
this part.
And then speaking of Lena, and we did talk about the different actresses. I think 4 different actresses played her.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
It
like
was-
the kid.
I don't know why they
Wait.
casted her so many different times.
I don't know. 1, 2, no, just 3, I think. Right? The kid, the older.
No, there's a
Teenager
kid,
and
then
then-
there's a teenager one, and then there's a slightly older one at the wedding who dances because she's
Oh, I
different
thought that
than
was the
the
same actress.
preteen. No,
All right, you're probably right.
yeah, and then there's the 4th one who actually dies.
Wow. Okay.
And she
well, there
didn't.
you
She
go.
only lived to like 20 something, and she still got 4 character changes. And then you have Christian, who looked exactly the same
I know.
from episode 2 to episode 10.
Well, hold on a sec. He did slick his hair back that one year.
He changed his hair, but his hair never got grayer. It was weird.
Nope. No. He is still davishly handsome.
And then there's also, so the son of Alicent and Viserys, he's Aegon. He's the one
Yes.
who's crowned king. He
Yes.
doesn't want it at all.
Right.
He hates the idea of it. He believes that his dad hated him. That's why he wanted to give it to his aunt so bad rather than him. And he's just a drunk. He goes to whorehouses all the time.
He's a terrible person. pretty
He's
much.
just a terrible person. And so finally, Alicent's like, kicking and screaming, I'm going to make you king. And this is the point where Alicent is kind of, her motives are shaken a little bit because she still realizes that she's a woman in a man's world. As much as she tries to manipulate and work in the background, she's doing bidding of her dad for her son.
And Rhaena really drives that home too.
That's a great sequence. That's the
Right before that.
sequence. Is
Yeah.
she's locked in that morning where they upheaval the entire succession plan, and she's like, "You understand that you're not really doing anything. Do you ever envision yourself on the throne itself, or is it just other people?" Because honestly, if you're Alicent and you know you have this really POS son, do you want him to be king just because he's your son?
Yeah, right.
Well, look at Joffrey.
Well, Cersei is crazy.
Yeah.
Alicent seems to have some wits about her.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say she's pretty smart. So
Like at a certain point, I don't know, because then you were talking about shocking sequences. At his coronation, a dragon comes up and kills a whole bunch of people. And this is probably the best part of the idea of Game of Thrones, is that we always focus on all these people who are lords and ladies, and they've been so blessed their entire life. And the people in King's Landing don't really care about your game. They don't care about the marriages you do or who's sitting on the Iron Throne. They have I need to eat the next meal. I don't know where that's going to come from. They have very basic necessity needs. And they literally order all of these people to go see this privileged kid get a throne, or get the throne, get a crown. They don't care. And literally all of the King's Guard are ushering them to the Dragon Pit to go see this thing. And they're like, I have places to be. I don't care. They're like, oh, I guess we're clapping now. Is this over yet? And then the dragon comes and kills all of them. But it's a really good contrast to, like, we had Election Day yesterday. And always remember, as much as you hear about the news about Election Day, didn't vote wins 100% of the time. Doesn't matter who the candidates are, who the parties are. Didn't vote always comes in number one. They have more tally than any votes that are cast. And that's how this King's Landing idea is. These people don't care who king is. They don't care if he's Aegon or if it's Rhaenyra, or they don't even care what Targaryens or what houses or what.
life is going to be crap either way.
Yeah.
Okay.
King's Landing is terrible.
Sure.
It's a terrible thing.
Pretty much.
Wait, so all this takes place in King's Landing?
Yes.
Yeah, the whole show.
Oh, that's
The whole
awesome.
series. So I said it's very
And King's
laser
Landing's
focused.
rendered very well too.
It's well done. There is some Dragonstone though too, because they do move to Dragonstone, the one family. So Rhaenyra and her family with Daemon, they moved to Dragonstone, lived there for quite a few years, and then she obviously finds out that she has been usurped on the throne and gets mad. So,
I mean, part of her, but so the funny thing of that scene is that when the dragon comes up and Aegon's just standing there and Alicent stands in front, she could have just killed the whole family right there. The High Towers, everyone connected to the High Towers. She could have just killed all of them. Little Dracarys, and they're all burnt to a crisp and done. But she doesn't. She flies away. I wanted her to just kill them all so bad.
I know. But she said that this is not her war.
Yeah, it's not her war, even though she's going to be severely impacted by it. But yeah, it's not my war.
It's an interesting choice.
Especially because now she's going to have to go into the war because her husband pretty much swore his allegiance to Rhaenyra.
I feel like she really does respect Alicent. I think that's why she didn't do it. I think a lot of it is that.
Yeah.
I she just really wants the whole like women power thing, and she's like, you're a smart lady. I think she wants Alicent on the throne overall.
Yeah.
So.
But we also,
anyways. But yeah,
we can't discredit Rhaenyra how much she tried to sabotage herself. She's not perfect. Every decision where she had a fork in the pathway, she chose the wrong choice. And so she ends up having kids who look nothing like the father that she's married to, or not the potential father, her husband. The offspring do not look anything like it. And they look awfully like her King's Gardener protector guy.
Like, exactly like.
And so that leads a lot of people to distrust her and just be kind of angry with her. And a lot is said about that. And it's just rumor and innuendo. But Rhaenyra could have had a lot more faith on her side and goodwill without making the decisions that she did.
Yeah.
But that's why nobody's likable.
Exactly.
So nobody was like, there wasn't any character that you were like,
well, the dragons.
I mean, I like characters. I like certain characters. I like characters that are awful because I'm a terrible person. So one of my favorite characters is Aemon, right? Is that his name?
The one-eyed kid?
Yeah, the one-eyed kid.
Yeah, he's
fantastic. Oh my god, that kid's a badass. So he's the only one of the kids, of all the kids, that doesn't have a dragon. So what does he do? Well, when his whatever his aunt, I guess, dies, his aunt has the biggest dragon in all of the world. So he's like, well, I'm going to claim that dragon. So he does. He gets up on that dragon as like a little 12-year-old and just commands it, and now it's his dragon. He owns the biggest, most badass dragon in the world. He gets his eye sliced in half, so he loses his eye. So he has a cool eye patch, and then he sticks a sapphire in his eye, and he looks like an anime villain. He's fantastic.
He totally looks like an anime villain.
He like has these.
It's really out of place in Game of Thrones in the fantasy world as this anime villain, and he also ages a lot. Like everyone else around him goes up a few years. He like doubled in age.
Yeah, he looks like he's 30, and everyone else is like 20. All right, but I'm okay with it. He's pretty fun. I like him. He's chaos.
And so he also, with that whole commanding the dragon, that he's actually not his birthright given dragon, is influential to the storyline because he decides that as Rhaenyra sends her two sons with their dragons out to get, different houses on her side, just as messengers, we're not going to do any fighting or war. Aemon's like, well, I'm going to beat you to it. And so he goes there, and the show ends with the war starting because Aemon's dragon is the biggest dragon around, and Rhaenyra's son's dragon is a little tiny guy. He's like, he's a little guy. And they have this whole fun little dragon flight sequence where it's just trying to escape. But then we see that Aemon doesn't really have control of this dragon because the little dragon breathes a little fire. He comes up and he's about the size of the other dragon's head. And he breathes some fire on the side of his face. And the dragon the big dragon's like, nah, bro. I don't care, Ryder, what you're saying or anything. This dragon right here just breathed fire in my face. Flies are getting bad. I'm killing this dragon. And he goes and kills this dragon.
And he does.
And Aemon realizes what that means instantly as soon as it happens.
Well, not only did he kill the dragon, he killed the son of the princess. in the
It was
process.
it was one bite.
Yep. Crumph, just you see
Done.
bits and pieces of them like flittering.
Oh, I love the bits and pieces fluttering down because it's still attached to a wing, so it's not just a
Yes.
quick fall descent.
Yep. Like
Oh, I'm like, this
It was a
sucks
great
that I haven't.
sequence.
It sucks that I haven't seen this because I'm just envisioning Avatar and the flying sequences from Avatar.
sure. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. Sure.
Pretty close.
Pretty close. I liked it. It was more like How to Train Your Dragon, but yes. We'll go.
Yeah. One of the dragons reminded me of Toothless. I forget which one.
Probably Rhaenyra's, I think, because hers is kind of more wider faced, if I
Yeah.
remember.
Because
Yeah,
Damon has
yeah.
like the very
He has the
Asian-inspired dragon.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
cool, like a snake-like dragon. It's red. That's my favorite dragon. But yeah, Vagar's my second favorite because he's chonky.
He
Freaking
is.
albatross. Yeah. That scene, that Jurassic Park scene, was great. Where he steps off his dragon at the very end, Luke, and he looks up and he sees the head pop up in the rain.
Yeah, with the
And
lightning
you're like,
and the
at that moment, I'm like, kid, you are dead.
Yep.
This is over. I am sorry, but you have a little baby dragon. So, war has begun. The War of Roses has begun. Thus
War of
begins
Roses?
season 2. Yeah, it's kind of loosely based on the War of the Roses. It's a civil war. So here we go. Season 2 coming up. I am hyped because I bet there's going to be a lot more dragon fighting in the second season.
I'm sad though because the dragons are gonna die.
Oh yeah, they're going to get torn to shreds. If the ending of this season was any indication, woof indeed.
And what's that new dragon that Damon just found?
I know. Well, apparently I looked online and it's what's his name? The king that died in the very beginning.
Oh, the old
Hey.
king?
Jaehaerys? Jaehaerys. Yes, the old king.
Okay.
That's his dragon. Because he doesn't have anyone that claimed him, so he's just sitting in the dark. So he's like, well, he's mine now, I guess. I don't know. He's going to have 2 dragons, I guess. I don't know if that's a thing that you can do.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Man, now I gotta watch this.
It's fun. It's a fun show.
Well,
A lot
it
of
seems
drama.
like it.
It's basically Three's Companies with dragons, you know. It is like miscommunications galore. Everyone's like, "What? You said who?"
What's the landlord in Three's Company?
Oh, what's his name? Shoot.
All I know
yeah,
him
he's
as
very much-
Barney Fife. So
Yeah, I can't do the bug eye, but
that's gonna be
Yeah.
that's a reference for you older folks out there.
like me. Gosh, oh. Anyways, that's House of the Dragon, ladies and gentlemen. Watch it if you want to. It's on HBO Max.
I mean, there was also just a few highlights that, in terms of shocking moments, when the body's not even cold of King Viserys dying, and they're scheming to take over, and the one guy is like, "Hey, we shouldn't do this. I don't believe that he changed his mind. That he's been steadfast in this decision for like 30 years. I don't think all of a sudden he's like, oh yeah, I'm changing my mind right now." And then Christian comes and slams his head on the table and cracks his skull open.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Especially Olivia Cook's reaction. The whole, oh, here we go.
Yep.
It's great. Not shocked or anything. Just like it's been a long morning. That just happened. Okay.
I haven't even had my coffee yet, and you're
That's what it
splitting
felt like.
skulls over here.
I know. It's like 6 a.m. I just found out my husband's dead. And
Oi, Faye! What
Oi.
else could go wrong today?
And now this guy. This guy. Oh, question then, before we wrap then, Trevor, for you. Do you think that the oldest son of all these names, Rhaenyra, I think his name is Jace? Is it Jace, the oldest one?
I don't know the kids.
Okay.
I don't know
The
Rhaenyra's
oldest
kids'
kid.
names.
The oldest kid to me looks like Kristen Cole, not like the strong guy. So he has straight hair, not curly, and he has the same facial structure as Kristen Cole. I wonder if they never saw her, they never showed us her drinking the tea. The tea being the after morning pill.
Yeah, the abortion
in Game
tea.
of
Yeah.
Thrones. They never showed her drinking it. So she very well could have kept that child. And that might actually be his son, not the strong guy.
Yeah.
Just my theory.
I like
He
it.
is that age. He's the right age.
Mm-hmm. And then Christian faces him and realizes it at some point.
I know. That's why I think there's gonna be something tragic where he kills him and finds out later that he killed his own son.
There was also one really good line where Rhaenyra says, "I don't want to rule over ash and bones," and it's a
Very
direct
reminiscent.
connection to Daenerys.
Yep. It's gonna happen.
The big question though is the dragon thing. Just so there's dragons 13 to 4. You know, Daemon specifically says we have 13 dragons. They have 4. So now they lost a dragon, so it's 12, but he gained a dragon back.
Right.
So it's back up to 13. So you're telling me these 4 dragons are going to defeat these 13 dragons?
They might not. We don't know. There might be more backstabbing within that family too.
Yeah.
We shall see.
Because Aegon hates his older brother, or Aemon hates his older brother Aegon.
Yeah. Thinks he's an idiot.
Yeah. Well, he is an idiot.
I don't know. I mean, there was a big split. If you are going to go into this show, and you've already watched Game of Thrones, don't do a rewatch of Game of Thrones beforehand because there is a major spoiler for possibly the second or third season of this series if it continues. I think it does. I think season 2 has already been greenlit, but there's a big moment that is spoiled in Game of Thrones.
What?
Because they tell the story of the Dance of Dragons. They tell this whole story, and one of the big moments is going to happen in this series at some point. So just spoiler warnings for you, because it is a moment that you might have forgotten about.
I definitely did.
Yep.
It's a very brief.
I think I forgot about most of Game of Thrones. Of the points that I remember are Tyrion talking to Jaime in the cell before the death, the mountain squishing Pedro Pascal's eyes, and then Littlefinger talking to Varys about climbing the ladder. I think those are the only 3 sequences I remember.
It's a good scene. I only remember that scene because it was such a cool. Like, they didn't show anything. Obviously, it was a story. They were just telling the story. But I was like, that's badass. All right, can't wait to see that on screen. It's gonna piss everybody off. It's gonna be great.
I remember seeing Bran falling out the window, or being pushed out the window.
Being pushed.
Yeah, he didn't fall.
No, he did not. Whee! Okay.
That's King you're talking about, okay?
Yeah, that's right. He's your king now.
Man.
Spoiler alert.
Ugh. Well, if you do decide to do any kind of rewatch of Game of Thrones, we did a whole series on Game of Thrones where we went episode by episode.
We did.
Of the 8, was that just the 8th season though?
I don't remember.
8th season.
Yeah, just the 8th. Just the 8th.
So, if you want to listen to us be extremely disappointed in a show, go listen to all those episodes.
I still stand by the first at least 4 seasons of Game of Thrones. I really enjoyed them a lot. Even some of the episodes of 5 and 6 were great.
Oh, dude, it's the meme of the horse drawing. The horse drawing at the very beginning is gorgeous and perfect, and and
at the end it scribbles.
It looks like a stick figure. Yeah.
Yep.
That's all it is.
That's what it is. So far, this show has been pretty good. So stick with the show.
We've said that before, though. That's kind of the idea of this show.
The good thing is
it's
a shorter story. We know the story ends soon. They don't have too much story left to tell, except for just the war. So it's not like they have many seasons to go. So I have hope. Crossing the fingers.
I do want to give a shout out to the little kid when Rhaenyra was looking at suitors, and there's the one kid who's like a bully, and he's always talking as the other kids are up there, and the little kid challenges him to a duel and then kills him. Yeah, he's like, he just kills. I love just killing the bully, just like done.
Yep. That was great. And he throws up. That was fantastic.
Yep.
He's like, I just killed somebody. There's a lot of barfing on this show. It's fantastic.
Oh my
Especially
God.
in the first episode. Where they do all the they stomp the guy's face in, his face comes out of his head. And the guy's like, ugh. Great. That was some of the best gore I've seen in a TV show.
Okay, so this
Really
show
well done.
is pretty damn gory then.
Well, it's graphic. Oh yeah. It's graphic.
Oh, man. I just went from really, really wanting to watch it to like,
Not the whole show is though. Just certain scenes here and there.
Yeah, but
Sprinkled
those
throughout.
certain scenes can really take
Yeah,
me
you're
out
fine.
of it.
Yeah, it's fine.
I'm a
Just
dad
face being
now.
ripped off a head. You're fine. So, anyway, any other notes, Trevor? I know you probably have a lot.
No, I have a
done.
ton of notes, but I think we covered the big things.
I think so. That was good.
There's a lot to enjoy in this show.
Yeah.
There's just a lot to dissect, a lot to appreciate, and a lot to look forward to. And honestly, there's big dragons, and they look good.
Dragons and Olivia Cook. What else could you ask for?
Oh, Olivia
Fantastic.
Cook's in this? I love her.
Yeah, she's the queen. She's the evil queen. There's two queens.
What? That's awesome.
It depends on what side you take. If you're this team green or team black.
Or they're both
Uh-oh.
evil.
Or they're both evil, which was my thought. Yes. So, anyways, well done so far.
Yep.
This series.
Let's hope
Not
it keeps
involved,
up. The saddest part is that it's not come back till 2024, and by then I won't even know what a
You'll forget
Targaryen
it,
is
huh?
because
What?
there's all kinds of other. Imagine all the stuff that's coming out in 2023, and they want me to remember this.
Right?
Best of luck.
Watch this episode.
So to everyone listening, be sure to let us know what you thought of House of the Dragon. Have you watched it yet? Are you going to watch it now? Did you think it was great? Are you excited for season 2? Are you done with Game of Thrones? Are you never going to give this a try again? Let us know at Secondary Heroes on all kinds of different platforms. And until then, we hope you enjoyed, and we'll talk to you next time.
Frog out.
Adios, y'all.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Secondary Heroes podcast. This week, we're talking all about House of the Dragon, the full 8-episode run. Is it 8 episodes or it's 9? Oh, crap. I think we got to start
10
over.
episodes.
It's 10. Who cares?
I'm pretty sure it's 10. Let me double check my math here. House of the Dragon.
there's 10 episodes.
Yeah, because it's classic Game of Thrones. 10 episodes.
Okay, we'll start over.
Okay.
That was fun.
I won't
hope
do
you
my
liked it.
patch thing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Secondary Heroes podcast. This we're talk. Fuck.
This we're talk. This is gonna be good stuff for the very, very end. For the very, 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 very end.
All I do is talk.
Talk.